Hello, I'm Terry Pellegrini. I'm a Master Gardener with Stanislaus County. I'm here today to guide you through making a worm habitat for vermicomposting. Very simple to make your habitat for your little wormy buddies. We need a large bin, about 18 inches deep is great. You can do smaller, but this is preferable. And we're going to want to drill holes into our bin all around the top edges. We want it on the bottom and the sides as well. My husband did the drilling for me on this because power tools and I don't get along very well. But you're going to want about 8 to 12 holes all around the edges, the bottom, and the top, using maybe a 3/16 to a 1/4 inch drill bit. Should give them plenty of air and aeration into your bin. The bin itself, again, you can buy this at any big box store, hardware store, and they're very easy to come by. Once you have your holes drilled, we're going to need to come up with some bedding for our wormy guys. What we're going to use today is shredded newspaper. We just ran it through a shredder. But you can also use such things as chopped up straw, dead plants, coconut coir, sawdust if it's coming from an untreated wood, dried grass clippings, anything like that that's dry that our little worm guys will love to chew on. Oh, cardboard also works as well. You may notice I'm putting gloves on because as we wet our newspaper to put it in, your hand's going to get very black and icky. Trust me, I've done this several times and I suggest the gloves. So we're going to want to wet our bedding. It needs to be damp, about as damp as a wrung out sponge. So what I'm doing here is just using a squirt bottle to wet my newspaper, and then we're just going to wring it out and make sure it's wet enough to stick together, but it is not dripping wet. So we're going to just squirt it together, and we're going to place that into our bin. Now, not only does this provide bedding for our worms, but the worms will also feast on the newspaper. So we want to make sure we do not use any of the glossy newsprint, because glossy newsprint will give has different inks in it and will give our worms a little upset stomach. So we fill up our bin with bedding. I've already done this earlier. So here we have our nice wet bedding. Again, damp, but not too damp. You don't want it to drown our worms because they do breathe through their skin. So we want the damp environment, but we don't want them to drown in the water. We also add a little bit of sand into our bin. The sand is grit to help the worms digest. So just a handful or so should go through fine. Once we have our bedding in here and our sand, we're going to want to put our worms. So I have a few here that are in our bin. Got these from another Master Gardener friend, but you can buy these online, and you can get them at bait stores as well because we want our little red wiggler buddies. But they're a lot more expensive if you get them at the bait store. So we're going to take our worms and we're going to carefully place them into our bin, making sure that they are covered and they're dry. Not too wet, not too dry. Here we go. So they're not all in there. And then we're going to want to feed them. For me, I just have a couple little pieces of bread I've already placed in the bin with the worms that I put in here previously. It also has some lettuce scraps and a little bit of broccoli. So remember, keep the pieces small, not too big, and place them in your bin. And just to give it a little, I make sure I just give it a little extra squirt, double check, everything's nice and damp, and our worms are very happy in our environment. I'm going to place my lid on, and underneath we have another bin, and you can see a little red tray here, and a couple of bricks. We place our bin on top of the bricks to keep the air circulating beneath, and the tray underneath captures any leftover moisture that may come through either from the bedding, or it could be also from any vegetable scraps that happen to be a little too wet in here. So there we have it. Very simple, very easy. We've just built a wonderful little worm habitat, and our worms are now ready to get in there and do our composting for us. Thank you very much.